So I will present to you today a topic which is something very important for me, which is about clinical research. And because we are here speaking about medical devices, more specifically about PMCF studies. I'm really into the subject by two sides, as you told, because I'm an orthopedic surgeon and I'm a clinical researcher. So I have to do a lot of clinical research in my daily practice, and this is something I love. And also, as the co-founder of EasyMedStat, many of our customers do a PMCF studies, and we help them. And we found that there is a way to transform these PMCF studies that can be constraining, that can be hard and painful sometimes, into some business opportunity. And this is what I will try to prove you today with this presentation. So I would like to start by a question and ask you if you have any opinion about what does influence the physicians during their prescriptions. And I have found some literature about it. It's scarce, it's quite scarce, but there is some literature on the topic. And I found this study, which is now 20 years old, but which is very interesting. It's about how people prescribe new drugs. And they have surveyed the consultants in a hospital, and they asked them to rate the usefulness of sources and information from 1 to 5. And what they found, which is very interesting, is that the three most important factors were specialist colleagues, scientific meetings, and scientific journals. And all of these three sources had an overall rate of over 3 out of 5 stars. It was already like Amazon or Google ratings. And it's quite disappointing when you see how the physicians rated the company promotion, either by representative or by advertisement. You can see that it's very low compared to what people get from science and from colleagues. So this is my first point, but I want to dive a bit deeper into this topic with specifically new technologies, including medical devices, of course. And this is another study which is much more recent and asked the physician how they adopt new technology in their clinical context. And what they have answered is that the physicians, they first assess the evidence base, meaning the scientific literature about a new technology. So this is an important point for physicians to adopt a new technology, but there was some criticism about this literature and the available studies. The two main criticisms were first, the very small sample size of these studies, which is not inconsistent because which is quite expected, because new technology means not yet widely distributed. So it's expected that there are small patient cohorts. And also the physicians were quite, they were a bit disappointed by the fact that these studies were always promoted by the manufacturers. So they could see the bias into the studies when reading them. So these were the 2 points that were mostly about our topic today. And I just want to share with you what I can see on my LinkedIn feed, which is a mix of many things, but mostly colleagues and orthopedic surgeons. And what I can see every day is that this is my LinkedIn feed from 2 days ago, and I found 2 posts. These are posts made by surgeons that were promoting their own clinical research, and they were showing the results of their own clinical research. And this is what I'm exposed to as a physician, as a surgeon, when I go to LinkedIn or when I go to a social network, a bit less on Facebook, but mostly on LinkedIn. This is what I see. So maybe, I don't know if you have the same kind of posts that pop up into your feed, but this is the kind of post that I can see every day. So overall, when you see what is in the literature or what I can see from social networks, you should ask yourself, that you may need to perform clinical research, and not only because of the regulations, but also for business. And of course, you need to do clinical research for the MDR, and this is a big topic for every device company today. And this is actually a really painful topic for many companies. As you know, 1 month ago, a French syndicate, the SNITEM, asked an extension of the transition period to ask 2 more years to perform clinical studies, because many companies are not prepared yet to release results about these clinical studies, because they may not be organized for it, and because clinical research is long, it's a tedious process, and it cannot be done from one day to the others. So this is a real topic, and I know it's not a topic only in France, but in the whole Europe, it's a topic. Many companies struggle to perform these clinical studies. However, I think that we are aligned on the essence of this law. And of course, the essence of the MDR regulation is to increase the quality and the security for the patients. And I'm sure that you, as device manufacturer companies, have the same objective, to do good products which will have good quality and will assure security for the patients. Of course, everybody is okay with that and is aligned on the objective. But when you think about the studies that have to be conducted, there is one question that really pops up, and I think is really a big problem to do today in the way that these clinical studies are performed. I always ask myself, and our customers always think about the studies for the PMCF as clinical studies that are made from pharmaceutical companies, from big pharmas. And I don't think that we should think of these PMCF studies as trials for Pfizer or for Sanofi. It's not the same at all. And I will try to convince you, I think you may be already convinced, but I will try to convince you that it cannot be thought the same way. First of all, money. A phase 3 clinical study, so post-market clinical study for a drug, is dozens of millions of dollars. And when you see the companies in Europe that do medical devices, it's the average revenue of this company, 20 million or 30 million euros. So when you see that the average company revenue is the same cost as a phase 3 clinical study for big pharma, you cannot think that these studies are feasible for device manufacturers. So of course, it cannot be done the same way. Second, double-blind placebo controlled studies are the gold standard for pharmaceutical research. And of course, as a surgeon, I will never do a double-blind surgery because I know the surgery I'm doing. And mostly the patient will know if he had a surgery or no. So it's very hard to perform double-blind surgery, if not impossible. So it cannot be the same design of these studies. And I think one of the most important factors in PMCF studies or in clinical research for devices in general is that the outcome of a device is not the only because of the device. If you see these two X-rays on the left, there is probably an issue with the device, something that went wrong with this hip arthroplasty stem, and it broke. So probably there is some manufacturing issue with this stem and something went wrong. But when you look on the right picture, you can see that the stem, the arthroplasty, is not inside the bone. So the surgeon failed to implant the device. And in this case, you cannot complain about the device. It's probably a mistake from the surgeon. But you can see on this that the device cannot be incriminated for the problem here. It's probably a mistake from the surgeon. And the same thing goes the other way. if the result of a device is good, is both because of the device and because of the physician who has implanted the device. So it's not just a device that we are studying a couple of the device plus the physician or the dentist or any caregiver that will use the device. So for this specific reason, I think it's the most important reason that differs between pharmaceutical research and medical device research. And finally, there is something about the follow-up which is fundamentally different with devices, is that in many cases, you need to have a very long follow-up for medical devices. If I take the orthopedic, for example, in orthopedic surgery, when you study arthroplasties, you want to follow them for 10 years, 20 years, and this is much longer than what you can find with a clinical trial for drugs, much, much longer. Or the opposite is also true. Sometimes there is no follow-up at all. If you do an IVD study, for example, the result is right now, and there is no follow-up at all. So this is something which is also different from the drug industry. So I hope I convinced you about these few slides that clinical research for medical devices cannot be thought as pharmaceutical clinical trials. It's not the same at all for many, many reasons, and some other that I didn't present here because I don't have enough time, but it's fundamentally something different and it cannot be thought the same way. So just to sum up this first part, this was the introduction. There are three things that we saw up to now, is that physicians, they rely on scientific communications and literature to do choices. Secondly, they promote their own scientific work. And this is a very important point because these physicians that promote their work, whether it be on LinkedIn or in scientific congress, they are key opinion leaders and they are here to promote also your company. And finally, clinical research for medical device is not pharmaceutical drug research. It cannot be the same. So, okay, when we have said all of this, maybe we can start to think about how it should be. And how it should be, I think clinical research for DM is all about partnerships. Because as you could see, it's not just giving a drug and waiting for the result. It's a physician, a surgeon, a physician performing the procedure with your device. So they are really active into the procedure, into the clinical result, and they should also be really active into the clinical research, which is not really the case for drug into the drug model, because physician can almost be replaced by one each other in the way that the clinical research for pharma was designed up to today. And it cannot be the same for device manufacturers. So we have a recipe to perform what we think is good clinical research for DM. And there are 4 points. The first one is that you should match physician interest, because you want to find your own interest, of course, doing this research. And if you want to have, if you find physician interest as well, you will have a win-win relationship with them, and it will work much better and much easier. The second point is that it should be easy for physicians to conduct studies. And because they also have their own problems and their own work, just like you didn't expect to do clinical research like 10 years ago for most of the companies, and now you have to do it, but it's a lot of time and you know it. You should help the physician publish and communicate about their scientific results, about the results of your device. And you should even go further and promote these scientific works within your marketing and along with your marketing team. So we will develop on all these points, and but this is really what we think is the good way to do clinical research. So the first one was how to match physician interest. And I can tell you some of the things that we hear from physicians and some of the things that I think as a physician. And when I do clinical research, there are some points that I want to check. Like, did my results progress over time? Do I improve myself? sometimes I will try some new technique with the same device, some new technique, and I want to publish the results of this new technique because I want my colleagues to know about it and maybe try themselves to improve them. Some physicians don't want to publish, but they just want to keep like a register, like a database of their patients, and they just want to have it in case. And you may ask some more specific questions, clinical questions, like do older patients have worse results, or whatever question comes to mind. Many physicians have like intuitions and they want to check it with facts. And in the other way, there are some problems with physician interest. And I'm sure you have heard all of the time these problems. The first one is the limited time, because these people, it's not their job to do clinical research. They have a clinical activity next to it. So they have limited time for clinical research. If you ask 10 surgeons which clinical score they want to use, you may have 10 different answers. So that's also a problem to harmonize and to standardize your clinical research. And most of the physicians who do clinical research, they don't want to be considered as people who just collect data. They want to be active and to be sure that they can use this data later for their own purpose. They want to use the data from their patients to study them for themselves, or maybe to go to Congress and speak in literature. Okay, but that sounds risky because if we let the physician publish, maybe they will publish bad results, and that may be a big problem for you if they publish bad results. So I will show you that publishing results, whether it be good or bad, is not necessarily a bad thing. And I think that most of the time, transparent knowledge is a very good thing. So yes, of course, the answer is yes, let them publish. And I would even go further and say encourage the publication of these results. So why to publish? Because it will provide a scientific foundation to your devices. Because the physicians that publish, they will promote these results and they are key opinion leaders. Because publishing results, whether it be good or bad, will improve the usage and decrease the bias that is brought by the fact that it's operator dependent. It will also help to refine indications because one device may not be good for all situations, and you want to refine the indications because you want to have good results overall. So you don't want your device to be used in bad situations. And it will also help you to guide innovation for your research and development. So let me show you some examples. I will talk to you today about shoulder arthroplasty because this is a topic that I know very well. And because I could follow in the last years the evolution of one stem, which I will talk to you today. So everything that I will show you today comes from PubMed, which is the database from the National Library of the US. And you will see some articles very interesting. So for example, this one was published 5 years ago. And the surgeon with Jill Walsh, who is a very, very renowned surgeon, orthopedic surgeon for shoulder surgery, asked if arm lengthening affect the functional outcome. And as you can see on these two X-rays, this arm is much longer than this one, which is quite normal with surgery because the arthroplasty will increase the arm length. But they study what is the good lengthening. How much should you lengthen the arm? And what they found is that the best lengthening is between 1 and 2.5 centimeters. And this is a very good point because it will help further surgeons to use the device according to these guidelines, and you have better results. And of course, when you do this kind of study, there are some patients that were lengthened less than 1 centimeter and more than 3 centimeters. And these patients, as you imagine, they have worse results. And this has been published. But this is not a problem because now all the other surgeons, they know which is the good length to give to the arm when using this arthroplasty. Another one, very interesting with the same arthroplasty, is about the size of the stem that should be used. So for example, you can see on these two X-rays, this stem is very large compared to the bone, and this one is quite small compared to the bone. And this has been proven by many studies that the right X-ray is the good one. You should not, surgeons should not feel too much the bone with a big stem. They should use a smaller stem so the bone around the prosthesis does not decrease. And of course, it's the same thing when you publish this kind of results. The patients who have a big stem in this study, they have worse results. So the surgeon has published bad results, but finally it gives guidelines to the other surgeon how to have good results. This is another one, so how you should size some implants, and they give you guidelines about how you should size the implants. And another one, which is very interesting because this one is much more severe, I would say, because the surgeon said we no longer use unconstrained prosthesis in type 3 and type 4 fracture. So he says that we have such bad results with this arthroplasty that we don't use arthroplasty anymore in this very specific population. And this is very important because all the surgeons that try to implant arthroplasty in this very specific population, they will have bad results. It has been repeated in many studies with many devices. So the fact that one surgeon say, don't use arthroplasty in this patient is very good because it will help people have better overall results and not use it in the wrong way. And one last case about the same prosthesis still is that the same surgeon, Pascal Boileau, has also described an associated procedure to the arthroplasty. So he does the arthroplasty, but he also does another procedure, which is to transfer a muscle, which gives the arm more strength. And this is very important because it increases the result of the prosthesis. So you put this device, you have a good result, but if in addition you do some muscle transfer, you will have more strength and more mobility. So this is another way to show that the device is not the only important factor when doing a surgery. So with these examples, you can see that when you publish the results, where you can improve the usage because people will know how to use it. You can refine the indications and see in which case a device should not be used. And you can describe associated procedure that will increase the results and improve the results of your device. And overall, all of these will improve the overall results. When you look at the big picture on a big scale, you will see that finally your implant will have much better results because everybody is using it much better. And I was wondering, okay, but this is my point of view as a physician who does clinical research, but it's a good business decision. And I think so. When you look at the story of Tornier with producing this prosthesis, it merged in 2015 with Wright, and they created a big company of $3 billion. And then this company was bought for $4 billion by Stryker. And the same year, and since then, the Stryker stock didn't stop to increase. So I'm not a finance guy, and I will not give you like a detailed explanation about all of this. But when you look at this, it's kind of encouraging that they did the good decisions to let the physician publish and to find the drawbacks and the problems with the prosthesis to improve the implant and to improve the technique associated with it. And it worked. It worked from a business standpoint. There is something also very interesting is that I was talking to you about Gilles Valch, who has published one of these articles. And when you see this page, it's VuMedi. And VuMedi is like the YouTube of surgeons and physicians. And look how many views the technique, the surgical technique had for this arthroplasty. 100,000 views. And we are not on YouTube. We are on a very, very specialized website with only surgeons watching these videos. So that's huge. That's huge. I think that's the equivalent of dozens of millions of views on YouTube when you report to the size of the population. So okay, so why to do it? We have it, and now how to do it. So it's a 5-step process. First of all, you have to create a network of experts. And I think that's the hardest part, but actually it's a cycle. So the more you do it and the more experts you will have in your network. Second, when you elaborate the protocols, do it with the experts. It's very important that you work conjointly with the experts because they will tell you what they want to learn and what is important to study. Because just security and performance, as it's written in the MDR, it's not sufficient. It's not, you will not improve with clinical research when you just say, okay, I want to study performance and safety. It's not enough. You have to go much further in the reflection, and they can help you with that, the experts. You should make it easy to do these studies, because the easier, the more you will be able to do studies. And you should encourage publication and promote them. So why to make it easy? Because when you look at this article, asking to the physicians why they don't do clinical research, the most important points that popped up were that they were not good with statistical analysis and that the paperwork was complicated. So these are the two criticisms and the two points that block physicians to do clinical research. And this is why we thought about our software, which allows us to do a lot of things, but mostly to help people do clinical research. And how it helps it? Because it will provide a secure but yet simple data collection tool. And it will allow the companies, but also the physicians, to do statistical analysis very easily and to create material for scientific publication. So this is a very differentiating point, is that we didn't create only a software to collect data, we created a software to do clinical research. And we did it with physicians in mind from day zero. So that's a very important thing. I will show you just in 2 minutes how it works. It's very simple. It's a software that allows you to collect data. So you have like forms for patients, and you will fill the information for the patients. Of course, you have all the security layers, like you can have an audit trail to know who has changed one data. And you can see it's very easy because everything is on the same page, so you don't have to navigate between different pages. But most importantly, you can do all the statistics from there. So if you go to any category of your ECRF, you will have all the statistics that are displayed already. And if, for example, if you want to do a survival analysis, you just click on Kaplan-Meier here, and you will have a Kaplan-Meier analysis, which is done. And you don't have to know anything. It just automatically from the beginning to the end. And what we do is that we also provide material and text to be copied and pasted directly into the article of the physician or into your PMCF reports. And you just have to copy paste this text, which are AI generated, to have some inspiration for articles and for your reports. So let's say you want to compare the age between people, between men and women. It's very easy. You just pick gender and age. You will have a table here, and then you will have a graph showing you the age of male and women, and the statistical test is already done. And the same way will give you what to write in results, what to write in methods, and you can customize anything and download these figures to put them in your reports or in your article. So that's a very good way for physicians and also for you to publish very easily. And the physicians, they love this software because they are not just data, people who collect data, they can also use it and take the power of analyzing the data if you give them the option to analyze them. And I'm almost finished, and I just want to explain to you that this has a very large and very good side effect. If the physicians that work with you, they collect data not only for you, but also for them, you can be sure that the monitoring will be much easier. And monitoring is a very hard part of clinical research. For example, in drug trials, it's almost a third of the budget, which is related to monitoring and data management. So that's a lot of money. It's millions of dollars we are talking about per study. So that's a lot of money. And also, you have to remember that you will be in a very tough position because you will have to monitor your customers. So you will just call your customer and say, yeah, can you do that? Can you do that? Can you do that? So it will create friction between you and your customers if you over monitor them. But if the physicians that collect data, they collect them not only for you, but also for themselves, you share the interest. So you do less monitoring. So it's less money to spend on this part and less friction, which may be more money for you at the end. So to conclude this presentation, I think that there is a big opportunity by doing PMCF studies and clinical research in general, because physicians' decisions are evidence-based, because it will improve the use of your devices and then lead to better outcome, and because the experts that will do the clinical research with you are key opinion leaders that will promote your devices. And how to do it? By creating a network of experts, by making it easy for them to do this clinical research, and by promoting their communications. Thank you very much, and I will be very happy to answer your questions now.
What a tour de force. Thank you very much, Mikaël. Please, if you have any questions, ask them in the chat and I will read them out to Mikaël. This is so refreshing to how you picture post-market follow-up work, not as something that is cumbersome that we do because of compliance, but we can do this to actually make money. It's a new competitive area, or an area that we can use for competition to drive up the value and interest in our medical devices.
You get it. It's exactly that. I think it's a new area of competition, and some companies have already taken the lead on it, and there is a lot of room yet to take.
Brilliant. So if I want to try out EasyMedStat, is there any easy way that I can do that?
Yes, of course. First of all, it's a web application, so anyone can register, create an account, and just try it with data that you have already collected, because you want to analyze some data that you have already collected. That's an easy way to do it. Or we can work together with companies to create their collection database and do it with them. This is something that we do every day, and I would be very happy to answer to people directly.
Brilliant. And is there any particular new things or new features that you have in the pipeline that you're excited to talk about that we will soon see in the market regarding EasyMedStat?
Yes. First of all, we are releasing this month something that we call questionnaires that will allow to program questionnaires that will be sent directly to the patients so they can answer directly from their mobile phone or from their tablet. So you can collect data without any any work from the physicians. So less friction yet. And another one, which is very important, is that we are working on something which is called the data cleaner, and that will allow you to clean the data automatically with some AI features that we are developing. And so that's a lot of monitoring that you have to do less with these features.
And I understand that you are an MD yourself, and you have performed clinical studies like this or do scientific work like this. Have you used EasyMedStat in your own work?
Yes, I use it every day for my own clinical research, because it's a tool that is used both by medical device companies, but also directly by academic people out of any relationship with medical device companies. So we have two targets who are academics and medical device companies. And when a company offers this software to physicians, they are so happy that afterwards physicians often call us and say, okay, I want this software also for myself. How can I have it? So I think that's a very good way to keep a good relationship also with your customers.
That sounds like a great thing. Well, I wish you, thank you for being with us here today. It has been very valuable for me and for everybody else, I hope. I encourage our viewers to hook up with Dr. Chelli on LinkedIn to keep themselves up to date with the latest developments in his work and at his company. And I would very much hope to see you here soon again, maybe in a year or so. Maybe there'll be a button for automatically publishing to the PubMed in one simple click. Who knows? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Carl.